I can pull up a quick demo. Go to the Induced platform. It's just an empty screen with no workflows right now. I'm going to click on new workflow on the top right. And it just asks you can either design the whole work from scratch, where you give step-by-step input, or you can use AI assistance. And I'll go through what that means. But it just asks for a workflow name. I'm going to put in employee timesheet, and I'll run through what workflow I'm making. So I just put in employee timesheet, and then I'm going to put in a step-by-step. This is just English description of a workflow that I want to design. And for context, the workflow is basically, think of a construction company or a company that has warehouses or physical centers across the country, and they have employees coming in and filling in paper timesheets. There is basically a log of when they're coming into work, how many hours they're working, what are the breaks they're taking, etc., etc. And this company takes in all of these paper timesheets, puts them on an Airtable, and they have to manually calculate payroll for every employee because it's all on paper. So you have to take whatever is on paper, understand it, then run it against a company policy doc to calculate. This guy worked 5 hours, this is the deductions, this is overtime, and then go and enter whatever payroll you've calculated back into an Airtable. So we did this for one of our early pilot customers. They have a real back office of 15 people in their finance team, finance and ops team that does this. But with kind of in the new world with some of these agents, you can just describe this on our platform.
It's crazy. So it has, hey, identify, access the Airtable payroll, navigate to the employee payroll base from stored variables, identify a relevant employee, search for employee with the payment status, review timesheet data, open the employee's timesheet, etc. And then it says, calculate the payment, access the employment payout info sheet on Google Docs. Using the timesheet data, note the total hours worked, end time minus start time, deduct any breaks, multiply the hours worked by the hourly rate mentioned in the Google Doc to get the gross amount, deduct any break time expenses or other deductions. And so this is the step-by-step process that some human did. You're just describing it in essentially plain English, not code.
Yeah. And then you just click create workflow. What it'll do with the AI assistance is, unlike a lot of traditional is a bad word to use because it's all very new, but unlike a lot of other autonomous agents, we don't directly start running it based on English. And this is actually the first time we are ever showing this product on a media, like a podcast or a video stream. But this is This Week in Startups exclusive.
Thank you.
But
yes.
It takes in whatever input you've given, it compiles it. We have this middle layer in between, which is just the input that you've given, but structured into smaller steps. So all of the steps that I took in, it just broken them down, chunked them in. So it's just basically access Airtable, then loop through the entries, pick one entry, just smaller chunks of whatever I described. And the reason this is useful is, one, for visibility for who's designing this workflow. They can see whatever input they're going, what's the final translation. And then what you can also have visibility into is we split it into a bunch of different action types. So it's, going to the web page is one action, clicking, filling, all of those are standard web actions. Then there's a bunch of data actions like looping, identifying, filtering that you can do on the page. And then we have the agent blocks, which are all of the smart actions. So once you go to an employee's timesheet, any calculation that you want to do, you can use the agent block to delegate and get inputs from a model. So it's basically a bunch of different block types, depending on what your workflow step is, that we automatically identify and put in. You can obviously edit, you can obviously make changes to this. And at the end, you can have standard, ELT or outputs in whatever format. So after the workflow is run, you can have triggers that give you an API call, put it in a Google Sheet or anything that you need. So it just puts it into these formats. And if you notice, for those that can see the screen, it automatically puts in these variables across the steps. So if your workflow involves capturing data from one place and then using it in another step later on, it's basically, I'll talk more about the browser environment, but this is basically a runtime that is designed for agents. So it has access to its own file system, its own memory. It can store data, retrieve data.
It's basically firing up a computer in the cloud, essentially, or a browser session. I don't know if you're using Chrome or Chrome OS or Windows. You can light up a virtual browser or a virtual machine anywhere, AWS, etc. So you're basically popping up a desktop and then running this stuff, yeah?
Yeah, so we spin up a Chromium fork on the cloud. So it's a virtual machine with a Chromium fork. It's a custom browser that we've designed specifically for running bots and autonomous agents and systems like that, which we can go into. But that's kind of, it spins that up, which is why it has access to all of these tools that you can use in the flow. And then once you're just happy with the workflow, just click run. this is kind of interesting because the way it runs is the browser that is spun up on the cloud. You can see a real-time live stream of the browser when the workflow is running. So it's as if you're watching a team member's screen. So you can see the stuff that's happening on the remote browser streamed live to you on the left. And on the right, you can see step by step what's being done. So you can see the stream goes to Airtable. It loops through the entries. It picks one of the employees, opens the employee's data, opens up this timesheet. And then now it's going to run OCR, and it can use tools on its own as long as you're giving it step descriptions. It'll use OCR document processing to capture text input from this document, store it in memory. Then it'll go to this Google Doc, which has information about how you calculate payroll based on the timesheet data. It'll capture this in memory as well. And then once it has both of these things in memory, it's going to compare both the data points, run a reasoning step, which is why reasoning steps usually take longer. But it's going to take both of those things in, calculate a final payroll amount, and you can see the variables being referenced here. We'll go back to Airtable, and it's just going to fill in. We've got a bunch of fields that were to be calculated. Just going to come back, fill in total hours worked is 9, break duration is 1, overtime 0, total payable is 7. You'll put in the hours, you'll put in total amount. And the interesting thing is, because this is all running remotely, we kind of call this the mission control view of the platform, where you can have a bunch of different browser instances doing different things, all the same thing running at the same time. So it's like a real back office. You can scale up, scale down. You can have 50 instances running at once. You can have 5. You've got the Airtable instance. We've got one running LinkedIn. We've got one on AWS. There's a TechCrunch thing here, and you can kind of see live streams of all of them. So for the task of a manager who's managing a 15-member back office team goes from actually delegating tasks to real people to just sitting and watching 15 of these screens. And
crazy.
If something goes wrong, just go in and flag it. But otherwise, you can have a top level view of everything that's happening.
So if I'm running some insurance company, sales team, customer support, whatever, my startup has these 6 or 15 agents running, doing the tasks that humans would previously done. And you just watch them and make sure it's doing it correct. And it feels like you've been working on this for less than a year. How many months into this are you?
We started working on this around April of this year. So March, April is when we started.
So you're 6 months into this process.
Yes.
Or so.
And we've kind of identified. So just as a disclaimer for this run was very well described. So I gave explicit input. I described everything, and that's how it ran. It doesn't require me to manually script the whole thing, and it runs reliably once I've given input. But it requires explicit input, and I think we took that the approach that we've taken architecturally, which I was talking about, is like the most important thing in this 6-month process that I think has helped us a lot. Where instead of designing an automation product that sits at a Chrome extension and then you use it synchronously on our computer, where I have an extension, I record something and then I can replicate, or I have an extension that is an assistant and I give it commands on my Chrome and it's doing things. We design everything to be remote and have its own environment. So we took Chromium, forked it, made some changes to it of how the DOM comes out, how the HTML comes out.
Has anybody started using this yet in like a real world situation, or are you still in the laboratory?
We launched early October, and then we went live with a couple of folks. We are live with about 15 now, and that is across different sizes. So small companies, mid-sized companies. We've kind of found our sweet spot in these mid-market to mid to up-market companies that are operating in sort of older industries like healthcare, financial services, etc.
Starting a business used to be such a painful process. You needed to get a lawyer. There were tons of fees. It was a mess, but not anymore. Just check out Northwest Registered Agent. They're going to help you form your company fast. Remember, speed matters. And then they're going to get you the docs you need to open a business bank account instantly. Then they're going to provide you with mail scanning and a business address. And they're going to do all that, keeping your personal privacy intact. Northwest can form LLCs, corporations, and nonprofits. And here's why. Founders love Northwest. There's no hidden fees. There's no upselling. You can call them or cancel at any time. And Northwest has the best of both worlds solution. It's simple and self-serve, but they can be hands-on if you need help with their amazing registered agent service. Northwest provides everything you need to start and maintain your business. And they're giving Twist listeners a 60% discount. For just $39 plus state fees, they'll form your LLC, corporation, or nonprofit. So visit northwestregisteredagent.com/twist today. northwestregisteredagent.com/twist.